Hey there, Angela Mosley here with Modern Fit Moms. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I structure a strength training workout, a full body strength training workout for myself with Prolapse, as well as any of my clients that might have Prolapse as well. I'm going to run you through what I always put in my warm-up, how I prepare the body for what's ahead, and then how I actually structure a strength training session with some accessory work, maybe conditioning, and some core component. All right, now I just want to say that every single workout is going to be different. Depends on what my goals are, what my clients' goals are, but this is the base, I guess you would say, like the template that I use to program a workout. Sometimes I do upper body, lower body split. Sometimes I do full body. It really depends on the day. However, again, I use this template to structure the warm-up, the power component, and then the main strength block, and then the accessory block to support my goals as well as any of my clients' goals that might have prolapse and leaking. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with today's video. Okay, so the very first part of laying out the program is our warm-up. I follow these principles with each and every workout or every warm-up, and I might add stuff here and there, but the main and most important pieces is learning diaphragmatic breathing. So doing a diaphragmatic breathing position, depending on what I'm working out for that day or where I might have some stuck spots in my body. So think about a water bottle, right? If you crush the water bottle and there's dents in the water bottle, how are you going to get those dents out? The only way to do it is by going internally and poking the dents out. I learned that from a great mentor of mine, and so that's why I like to visualize and share with people. That's why we focus on our diaphragmatic breathing, because diaphragmatic breathing helps us to learn better pressure management strategies and helps us to spread the load. And so when we do this in our warm-up, it prepares us for our lifts for the day. So I always start every workout with some kind of breathing drill or breathing position. And so I'm going to walk you through that in just a second. Right after that, we might go into a core activation. So there's always a breathing. There's always some core activation. There's always some T-spine, thoracic spine, or rib cage mobility going on. And then there's always hip mobility and glute activation. Sometimes I'll combine them together. Sometimes I'll do two different exercises. So I really focus on those. And then if I have extra time, then I'll go into some more of my rehab type stuff if I have time for it, depending on the day and what I have coming up. As a homeschooling mom and stay-at-home mom, I have to be very strategic with my time. So I try to make it as efficient and quick as possible. So the very first thing that we cover or that we do is breathing. And so I always start with some kind of breathing position. As of lately, I've been loving a side lying breathing. So I like to either take a yoga block or a Pilates ball. And the idea with our breathing is simply that we just want to learn to spread the load. When we have kinks in our system, such as that water bottle, then we create pressure. So no matter what, we're creating pressure with our breath. But when we have dents in the water bottle, then the dents are going to push the pressure somewhere else. So if you have prolapse, if you have diastasis recti, or if you're leaking, then there's clearly a dent somewhere in the system that is pushing that pressure forward. When we use our diaphragmatic breathing in different positions, this can help us break out, not break out, but smooth out those dents. So a lot of people struggle with back body expansion and lateral rib cage expansion. So that's why I always love doing, especially when starting with someone at first, in a side lying position or in back breathing, such as in a child's pose. So I love using the yoga block. You can use a rolled up towel, you can use a pillow, you can use a Pilates ball underneath your rib cage, especially if the yoga block is too much. Now, if you're pregnant, you'll probably go without, depending on how big baby is and where you are in your pregnancy. But the side lying breathing is an excellent exercise for those of you that are currently pregnant, because we can continue to get that lateral rib cage expansion. All right, so super simple. You're going to place the yoga block or whatever it is underneath. You can use your opposite hand for support, and then you can bring your knees up. And I'm just going to take a nice solid inhale through the nose. I like to think about 4 counts in through the nose. And you want to think that this rib cage is expanding towards the ceiling. Okay, position the block so that it is comfortable. You don't want it to feel painful, but the bottom block, Pilates ball, pillow, whatever it is smushing the bottom ribs so that then all of the breath has to go into the top. So notice that we're creating our own dents in our water bottle so that we can open up different spaces. So I'm going to inhale through the nose. And then exhale as if I'm fogging up a mirror. And I'm going to let all of that breath come all the way out. And my rib cage just melts over the yoga block, the Pilates ball, whatever it is that you have. And then I'm going to repeat that again. And so I typically, depending on the breathing exercise, I'll do about, if I'm doing unilateral, I'll do 5 breaths on one side and then 5 breaths on the other side. If I'm doing something like a child's pose, I'll aim for 8 to 10 breaths to really focus on that inhale. After that, I'll probably go into a core exercise or a core primer exercise. And so you can add in some core activation with your breathing if you want it, or you can just simply focus on spreading the load of your breath, allowing the pelvic floor to do its job. So the pelvic floor should recoil back up with the exhale. So as you inhale, pelvic floor relaxes, pelvic floor lengthens. As you exhale, the pelvic floor should recoil up. Now, if you're struggling to get the pelvic floor to turn on, you can add in a pelvic floor contraction, but it's not necessary. It's really dependent on each individual. For me personally, I just focus on the breathing and really spreading that load, allowing the pelvic floor to extend and allowing it to recoil back up, because I know that I'm going to do some core activation and I know that the pelvic floor is going to turn on for that. So a very simple core exercise, which is going to be the most simplest that we can do, is simply a supine breathing position. So you're just going to come down and you're going to still focus on that breathing. So that diaphragmatic breathing, I have the block in between my knees. I could place my hands on my rib cage because I still want that lateral rib cage expansion. I want the breath to go into my belly and I want the breath to go into my back. So as I inhale, think 4 counts in. And then with the exhale, I could think about squeezing the ball. I think about lifting from the bottom up. And again, fogging that mirror. Now you can do one of 2 things here. You can hold that brace at the bottom of your exhale and take another inhale into, because then the breath, when you're compressing in the front, then the breath has to go into the other places, right? So you can either do that, you can hold your brace and then inhale, or you can let it go, everything relax, and just repeat that. Inhale through the nose, everything relaxes, everything expands. Exhale, squeeze the block, everything comes all the way up, and you're going to exhale like you're fogging out a mirror. Now, again, this is super, super simple. There's these simple exercises. Other exercises I might do would be like a dead bug, a side plank, a bear plank, a bird dog, something just to get that deep core to turn on and to really connect it with my breath. Because that's the intent of this exercise, is to use your breath to connect with your core to wake up the pelvic floor. So that's what I would do right after that. After that, I would then go into a thoracic rib cage T-spine mobility. And so one that I personally love, super easy to do, is you can use a yoga block between the knees, because I want the movement to come from your upper back, not from your low back. And the idea with the rib cage and the mid-back rotations is that it creates more space for that diaphragm to move. Especially when we go into our lifting, we need to have the space in the diaphragm to move, to spread the load, because if not, then all of that breath and pressure is going to go down into the pelvic floor, and that could be why you're experiencing heaviness, or that could be why you're experiencing leaking. So when we open up these spaces, this helps us to spread the load. So you're going to place the yoga block in between the knees underneath the hips, and I'm going to place one hand on the floor. I'm going to think about pressing the fingertips into the floor to push myself away. I'm going to take this opposite hand behind my head, and I'm going to inhale down, and then exhale, push and open up. So notice that I'm moving through my T-spine, my rib cage, not my low back. And that's also why we can squeeze this block as we open up, because then that's going to help lock the core in to keep us from rotating through the pelvis. So inhale down, exhale to open up. So typically I would have my clients do anywhere from 5 to 8 reps on each side, and then that's going to be our T-spine rotation. There's a million different exercises to work through the thoracic spine. That is just one of the more simpler ones. That is one of the more basic ones. Now, if you find that you are really, using your back, you can always come down to keeping your hips on your feet, drop down and open up. Because again, the idea is that we're opening up through the chest and working through that mid-back and our thoracic spine rotation. All right, so we've nailed that. We've got our breathing, we've got our core activation, we have our T-spine. chest mobility, T-spine mobility. Now we're going to go into hip mobility. Now, depending again on the day, I might combine these two. So what I like to do is I like to do some kind of hip mobility followed by a hip shifting that's going to help me wake up or activate the glutes. So if I'm short on time, then I'll just do the hip shift because that's going to take me through that full range of internal rotation to external rotation. But if I have the time, then I'll add in something such as an adductor rock back. So I'll lean back, inhale back, exhale, move forward. So you're going to open up through the adductor here as we sit back and then drive up. So super simple. This is one of my favorite exercises to add in to my warm up, especially if I'm going through a lower body day or a full body day. So inhale back, exhale, come forward. So again, I might do anywhere from 6 to 8 reps on each side. So after that, I will then go into some kind of hip mobility and internal, external rotation exercise. Hip shifting is amazing for the pelvic floor as well as the glutes. And I hear time and time again that the problem that women are facing is that they can't get their glutes to turn on. And so hip shifting allows the pelvic floor muscles as well as the glutes to go through their full range, right? So they're going into internal rotation, opening up, lengthening through the muscles, and then external rotation helps to turn the muscles on. So super simple exercise that you can start with is a simple hip shift, quadruped hip shift with that block. So I'm going to take the knee on the block and I'm going to match my opposite knee and then I'm just going to step out. I'm going to press my hands. So I'd like to think about pressing my fingertips into the floor to push my body away. So I'm working through that serratus, so pushing through. And I want to think you can pop these toes up, or you can just let this foot float. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inhale into this back spot here because this is where we're in internal rotation. This is going to help open up this space, help create that length in this space. And then I'm going to think about pressing this knee into the block to push away. And I'm going to take this opposite hip up towards the ceiling. So I'm not kicking back. I'm going straight up. So I'm inhaling here. And then I'm going to think about pressing this knee into the block to lift straight up. So low abs will come on board. And then I drop down, opening, inhale. You can hold here for just a second as you do your inhale. And then exhale, push that block away or push that knee into the block as you drive straight up. So inhale here. Exhale, drive up. So again, you're going to get those low abs on board as well. And you should feel an opening in the back as you drop down, and then activation as you press. Very important to think about pressing this knee into the block to open up. Okay, so external rotation. So external rotation, glutes should fire on. Internal rotation, nice and lengthening. So those are the exercises that I would add into my warm up. Those are the template, like that. Those are always the ones, not those specific ones, but the concept or the idea of your breathing, your core activation, so connecting with your core, whether that's just a supine position or adding in like a dead bug or a side plank or a bear plank, something of the sort, some kind of core activation exercise, followed by some rib cage mobility, T-spine mobility, chest opener, followed by hip mobility, and then some kind of hip shifting. Because I am someone with prolapse, I am prone to tightness. I always have some kind of hip shift, internal and external rotation, because I find that's what helps my body the most in my workouts. So if you have time, you can run through that one time, or you can do it 2 times. Now, if I have time for the day, then I might go into some rehab style exercises. And so depending on the workout, whether it's a full body workout, an upper body workout, or a lower body workout, is kind of where I'll pick. So I only do about 2 exercises. That's might be where I add in that hip shift, and I do the hip mobility in the warm up and then add in the hip shift, whether it's a quadruped hip shift or an airplane rotation exercise or an RDL on the wall with rotation. I always add in some kind of component of hip shifting into my rehab, and then I'll do some rehab for the shoulders. I might add in a core exercise there. It really depends on how I'm feeling, but this is really an opportunity for me to work on my corrective exercises or posture alignment exercises to support my body, to support my strength training without having an entire workout just on rehab, right? And so this is where I like to sneak it in, a sneak attack. So it doesn't take that much time, but it helps me for my following lifts. All right, so once I've gotten my warm up, we don't want our warm up to be like this super lengthy ordeal. 10-minute max. That's all we want. We do want to prioritize our breathing, but we want to make sure that we're moving through it. We're keeping things simple. No more than 10 minutes of our warm up. All right, right after that is when I'll go into some kind of power move. So I'm going to show you just a super simple box jump. So I try to make sure that I do all the different ideas. And again, it depends on the week, depends on what I'm working. Sometimes I'll do power exercises like a dumbbell snatch or a kettlebell swing. And then sometimes I'll do impact exercises. And so what you want to make sure is that you're doing all the different things. So a lateral movement, vertical movement, horizontal movement. And you're not going to do that all in one day, of course. You want to make sure that it's spread out throughout the entire week. So I'm going to just show you a box jump. So what I would do is I would pick one power exercise. I would repeat it 3 to 4 times for about 30 seconds, or you can do reps. So if I'm doing a box jump, I might do 5 reps. 5 reps is enough. This section is not so much to get your heart rate up. It is more to work on skill development, right? So especially if you're someone that is experiencing leaks with impact with box jumps, then this is a great opportunity for you to work on it before you go into your main lift, because then that way your pelvic floor isn't super taxed and you're ready to go. You've just done all of your breathing, all the things, and this is where you can really work on that skill. So again, I choose a power exercise that I personally want to work on for that day or that week. I program it so that it makes sense, right? So again, super quick and easy would be a box jump. So I like to inhale back and then exhale, land soft, and in that soft landing. So inhale back, exhale, jump up onto the box. If you're having issues with box jumps, I did make a video on returning to impact with leaking and prolapse. So make sure to check that out. I'll make sure that it's down in the description below. But anyway, that's just an example of what I would do as far as a power move goes. All right. Let's talk about how I structure my strength block. All right, so depending on the person, so I do barbell lifting. However, my clients are not there yet. And so I always have them, they're working with dumbbells, depending on the client. And so most of my membership is all dumbbell based. So we don't lift barbells in the program, but that is coming. I am planning on creating some content and workouts centered around barbell training. I'm hopefully going to put out in 2027 a back to basics barbell training program for women with leaking and prolapse. So that's coming. But what I would choose typically for a workout for me is I would do one main lift. So I would do a bilateral lift. So whether that is a squat, a RDL, a hinge, a deadlift, a sumo deadlift, or a hip thrust, I choose one of those. I always do a lower body first if I'm doing my full body, because for me personally, I want to continue to work on my lower body. My lower body takes a little bit longer to build than my upper body, but it's also more taxing. It requires more muscle recruitment for that lower body. So I always put that as my first exercise. And if I'm doing dumbbells, then I'm not really doing a warm-up set, especially if you're working out with me at home. We don't really do a warm-up set for the dumbbells because we're not lifting extremely heavy. Whereas if you are lifting a barbell, you want to make sure that you're doing 1 to 2, I say 2 minimum of a warm-up set. I always aim for 8 reps that first round and then 5 reps the second round. And then once I continue, so I'll add in the load. You know, like I usually start with 100 pounds for my warm-up set, and then I just add on to it. I'll do 8 reps and then 5 reps, and then once I get myself to that next level or where I was prior, to increase the load, so progressive overload. So I'll always do a bilateral movement, lower body movement, and then I might pair it with either a core exercise or I might pair it with an upper body exercise. And so every workout is going to have a bilateral movement for the lower body, a core exercise, some kind of functional core, whether that is a side plank Copenhagen, a bear with a pull through, a Pallof press, or a dead bug. I always have one of those exercises, whether it's in the prehab, the warm up, or in the actual workout. That's kind of where I place it. And it's going to vary from time to time. But I always make sure bilateral movement, some kind of functional core movement, a unilateral movement for the upper body, whether that's a lunge, a single leg hinge, something of the sort. I always make sure I have some kind of unilateral movement that is going to help promote more stability, because when we have stability in the lower body, this is going to help our pelvic floor, but it's also going to help our core. And it's amazing for those of you that are runners, but everyone should be doing unilateral movement. It's just a no, non-negotiable is what I'm trying to say. And then as far as my upper body goes, I want to make sure that I do some kind of either vertical press with a horizontal pull, or the opposite of that, a horizontal press with a vertical pull. So I switch it up to make sure that we're hitting all the ranges. So that's like the main block, right? So you've got your bilateral movement, you've got your unilateral movement for the lower body, and then you have a functional core exercise, then either a horizontal pull with a vertical press or the flip side of that. So that's the meat, right? That's the main thing that I do. And so depending on my goals, again, I do love to add in some core component into my upper body. So for example, I might do a single arm chest press with some hamstring engagement. So a hamstring isometric hold bridge. So I'm working on my horizontal pushing, but I'm also working on my hamstrings, my accessory muscles, to support my lower body work. And so that's how I like to personally program it. I'm not trying to max out my bench press, not gonna lie. It's just not something I'm interested in. Like I said, my upper body builds a lot quicker than my lower body. So for me, it's not a personal goal. And like I said, everyone on my membership is lifting dumbbells. They're not benching a barbell. So that's how I program it, to keep that variety, keep them getting stronger. So I always, with my upper body, typically I'll add in some kind of functional core component tied to it. All right, so that's the base, that's the focus, that's the main thing. And then we have our accessory work. So in the accessory section is where I'll add in an extra core exercise. I'll add in accessory work such as lateral movements, biceps, triceps, things like that. I'll add in some abduction for the legs, such as, you know, a reverse clamshell or a side plank clamshell or a standing glute medius hip thrust, a monster walk. Well, that's where we're going to add in some of that smaller accessory stuff, that where you're going to feel that burn in the glutes, but it's not necessarily the key component of the workout to build the glutes. We need all of it for a nice solid soup of a good solid programming. And that's where I'll add in the accessory work. So you've got your main block of work, then you've got your accessory, and then after that, if there is time, because like I said, guys, I am a busy homeschooling mom, and I'm running a business and creating content for you guys, so I want to make sure my workouts are super short and effective. I'm hitting all the things. I was prone to injury. I had SI joint pain, prolapse symptoms so bad I didn't want to walk. I would have back spasms. So it's very important that your workout is super functional to get you to get stronger, to prevent that stuff, right? And so at the end, if I have time, then I'll add in some conditioning. So that might be, you know, getting that heart rate up there, going for a little burn. That 5-minute finisher is what I like to call it. I might do 2 to 3 exercises for 30 seconds back to back. So for example, I might do a dumbbell snatch followed by a lateral shuffle followed by a core exercise. I would do it 30 seconds back to back to back and repeat it, and then I would take a 30-second break at the end of each block, and then I would repeat it 3 to 4 times until that 5 minutes is up. So that's how I program my strength workouts for myself, for my clients, and similarly inside how I program inside the membership for the workouts there as well. It is just a system, a method that I've created that I love, and I have just seen my personal body grow so much strength-wise that I'm like, this is it. This is how, because I'm hitting all the nuts and bolts. Again, sometimes I'll mix it up. I'll do upper body versus lower body. I might change it up where it's like a pull day. So an upper body pull day with an upper body push day, or opposite, upper body push. There's a million different ways to program it. But if you want to think about the main components of a workout, is that diaphragmatic breathing, activating the core, working through that T-spine, working through some hip mobility. And then that's where you can add in your rehab work. If you have some rehab stuff that you're working with your pelvic floor PT on, that's where you would put that stuff. You'd plug it in there right after your warm up, right before you go in, and then power, because I'm not getting any younger. I'm 38 years old. I'll be 39 in January 2027. And impact is important for bone density. Impact is important because think about it. When you are carrying stuff, I live in New York, and the winters are terrible, and we slip and we fall, and there's going to be opportunities where you're going to have to catch yourself. And if you don't have that momentum from your training to catch yourself, then that can result in a very bad injury. And so I do these things because I love it. It's fun to me, but also because I know that I'm not getting any younger. And it's very important to add in that impact training for bone density, especially as we age, because it is only going to go, it's not going to get worse. As long as you are training well, it's not going to get worse. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I know that's a lot. If you're looking to create your own programming or you want help with some programming, I do offer one-to-one coaching and training. So make sure I'll post the link down below of how you get in contact with me about that. If you want to join me inside the membership, where I use this methodology as well inside the membership, I always tell everyone to start with core lift. That's where you're going to start. That is the base program that is taking you from leaking, diastasis recti prolapse to getting back to the full workouts, where you can just kind of get better and better and get stronger and stronger. Otherwise, make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to stay tuned for more videos every single Monday at 7 a.m. And please comment down below what you would like to see next, or if there's certain material or content that you would like to see in the future.